Luis Ortiz beat Tony Thompson by 6th round KO, dropping him 3 times in the first round, the third round, and again in the 6th round with a punch that ended the fight. All in all, a very, very good performance from Luis Ortiz. First things first, I must give a bit of credit to Tony Thompson. I thought he put in a spirited performance. Showed class at some points, showed he was a total warrior. I suspected that Thompson would very much be at the end of his career. And once he felt the power of Luis Ortiz, once he got hurt, he may be inclined to give up, for want of a better word. But he didn't do that. He was dropped hard in the first round, and he got back up, fought on, and gave us another 5-6 rounds of action. So before I get into it, credit to both men. A real good performance from Luis Ortiz, and a real good performance from Tony Thompson in defeat. Not a performance from Tony Thompson like he was going to win, but credible, and he handled himself well. Ortiz, he's in a difficult spot, really. He's got Alexander Ustinov next. That won't be viewed as a competitive fight. I mean, Ustinov's decent, but for me, Tony Thompson's actually a better fight than Ustinov. And I don't know, I feel after that he may be avoided because he looks like a right handful. I made a few notes during this fight. The first thing that surprised me was the size difference in there. I mean, Tony Thompson's a massive guy, isn't he? I think he's 6'5". He's also, very, very heavy. I think he weighed in the mid-260s for this fight. So he's a real big guy, both in terms of height and in terms of weight. He's clearly very, very experienced. But previously, when I've seen him fight guys like, David Price, Vladimir Klitschko, he hasn't always been the bigger man in the ring. He was a substantially bigger man than Luis Ortiz yesterday. A real substantially bigger man. I mean, I know Luis Ortiz fought at I think it was the 200-pound weight division in the amateurs, so heavyweight, not super heavyweight. But I was surprised how much bigger than Luis Ortiz Tony Thompson actually was. Now, it didn't have much effect in this fight in particular, but that is potentially something to note, because if Luis Ortiz is going to go to the very top of the division, he's going to be fighting guys like Deontay Wilder, Vladimir Klitschko, Tyson Fury. Obviously, next he's going to be fighting Alexander Ustinov, who's bigger still. So, what I'm getting at is potentially size difference will become a factor at some point in Luis Ortiz's career, even if it wasn't there yesterday. I thought Ortiz started the fight well. I thought he was much more composed than I've seen him previously. Usually he comes out like a greyhound out of the traps in round one, and he throws a million punches and tries to decapitate his opponent. Yesterday I didn't see that in the same sense. I saw him coming out, having a look, not pushing the pace so much, and I thought that was good, because my biggest concern about Luis Ortiz, and it's not something that I hold exclusively, most people's biggest concern about Luis Ortiz is his stamina, and the perception that given his age, given his build, given the way he fights, and given the fact that he's not gone late in fights, he may struggle to make the later rounds. So, I was pleased to see him come out, have a bit more of a look, play a bit more chess rather than just running straight at his opponent. And he was doing well. He was controlling the action. He was definitely the general in there. Tony Thompson, I thought, was giving him a little bit of problems. A lot of Luis Ortiz's game seems to be double southpaw jab, straight left. And I thought Tony Thompson was really doing a good job early on of avoiding the double jab. He had a sort of two-part head movement where he'd slip and then duck, and you'd see Thompson get low and bend. And I thought early on Luis Ortiz was having a little bit of a problem actually landing his jab and getting his work off. I felt that his double jab cross was a bit too routine, and he was throwing it too much, and as a result, Tony Thompson was able to read him and to stay out of harm's way. But really, Thompson wasn't landing much himself. He was trying to move. Obviously, he wasn't the fastest guy in there, being in his mid-40s and being so heavy, but he was trying to move, he was trying to throw a jab, but he wasn't really landing much of note that was troubling Luis Ortiz. So, I thought Luis Ortiz was winning the fight very, very comfortably. I just thought Tony Thompson was giving him something to think about, so we say. End of the first round, Ortiz catches Thompson with a real sort of overhand cross, I guess you could say. He kind of threw it like this and caught Tony Thompson. I don't want to say back of the head. I'll certainly say side or top of the head. He kind of caught him like here, if that makes sense. You know, when Thompson goes down, it was a heavy knockdown. At that point, I thought the fight may well be over, but Thompson showed excellent heart, chin, durability to get up in the fight. You know, we've seen him get up from Vladimir, we've seen him get up from David Price, we've seen him get up from Luis Ortiz. Tony Thompson genuinely has a very, very good chin, and he showed great heart to stay in the fight at that point. You know, a lot of the action in the mid-rounds was Tony Thompson trying to spoil, you know, stay out of trouble. Thompson was doing okay, you know, he was asking a few questions. He was landing a bit on Luis Ortiz, he was getting the jab moving, and there was a suggestion that Luis Ortiz was slightly more hittable than suspected once up against a bigger, classier opponent like Thompson, but to be honest, the punches he was landing had so little snap in them, so little speed, so little power, that it didn't really strike me anything of note, and I had Luis Ortiz definitely winning the middle rounds, let's put it that way. You know, Ortiz, as I say, was more composed. I thought he was punching nicely to the body as well. You know, whenever he landed on Thompson, he dropped to the body. And that's always something Ortiz has done. He's one of the best body punchers in the heavyweight division at present. So, you know, real credit goes to him for that. You know, Tony Thompson was just kind of surviving. You got the impression he was trying to take it to the later rounds, see if Ortiz was still there in round 8, 9, and just test out the Luis Ortiz stamina there, really. And as Thompson started throwing more, Ortiz's success actually started to increase, and that was a theme for me in this fight. You know, Tony Thompson was actually doing okay when he was just trying to stay out of trouble, but whenever he tried to throw a punch, you know, whenever he tried to get his own work off, he was so slow and so cumbersome and so plodding that Luis Ortiz was just able to watch the punch and counter him. And most of the times Tony Thompson was in trouble in this fight came directly after he'd thrown like a slow, lazy jab, and Luis Ortiz just went straight over it. And I think I'm right in saying that all 3 times Tony Thompson was dropped in this fight, it was kind of from him maybe throwing a sloppy punch and Ortiz throwing a sort of slightly looping overhand left cross. Yeah, I don't want to say it was a Derek Chisora punch because it was leagues above a Derek Chisora punch, but I'm kind of talking like that sort of fast bowler in cricket action where he comes up over the top, almost like an MMA style punch, and each time it landed right on the back and top of Tony Thompson's head, you know, so he's having real effect with that punch, and it's clearly a dangerous weapon to have in the armoury because yeah, if you're getting hit on the top of the head, if you're getting hit around the back, it can really affect your equilibrium and hurt you and damage you in a fight. So you know, Luis Ortiz was having real success with that. You know, Tony Thompson, as I say, was asking some questions. He had some good defensive veteran spoiling skills, but whenever Tony Thompson was starting to throw punches back, he was just getting countered. And you know, the power difference between the two, the speed difference between the two, the snap in the work between the two was so evident. And you know, Tony Thompson, the way he fought, the fact that he didn't push the pace, and the fact that Luis Ortiz was slightly more composed, meant that the big question about Luis Ortiz's stamina, for me, wasn't answered in this fight. It ended too quickly. Thompson didn't push the action enough, and for me, we never really got to learn what King Kong stamina would be like later on in the fight. But yeah, Ortiz dropped Thompson hard at the end of the 6th round. Thompson didn't make the count. Had he made the count, if I was the ref, I'd still pulled him out at that point. You know, it wasn't competitive. He'd taken 3 very heavy knockdowns, and at this stage of his career, I think it was sensible to call the fight off there for my money. So Ortiz goes marching on. He fights Ustinov next. Ustinov's another very big guy, very tall guy, but again, quite slow, quite plodding. In many ways, not too dissimilar from Tony Thompson in that sense. I think Ustinov is going to have to use the jab a bit more than Tony Thompson. You know, and he's going to have to be very mindful of that overhand cross because that's a dangerous punch. But Ustinov has shown good durability in fights before, so maybe he's the one to test Ortiz later on in fights. I think Ustinov's size could give Ortiz problems, but I think he's maybe a bit more rigid and a bit more upright than Tony Thompson, which may mean he becomes more hittable. Whilst Ustinov is tough and whilst he's a credible fighter, I don't think he's necessarily got the offensive capability to hurt Luis Ortiz in this fight, but I guess we'll see. There's only one way to find out. You know, as for Luis Ortiz, he's definitely one of the biggest threats in the heavyweight division right now. I'd pick Tyson Fury to beat him. I think Tyson Fury's movement and size and the way he sort of rides punches and leans would cause Ortiz a lot of problems. And I think with the size gap, Tyson Fury may be able to pick him off from range a bit. But you know, outside of Tyson Fury, there aren't too many men in this division that I would confidently pick to beat Luis Ortiz right now. You know, he's a southpaw. He looks tough. He punches very hard. He's a good body puncher. Still need to see him going late in the fight, but Luis Ortiz, top heavyweight, and I hope he gets involved in more of a 50-50 fight soon. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.